Carol, welcome everyone to our Òrìṣà Devotion webinar. It is my prayer and wish that Òòṣà, Olokun, Ifa, and Eshu, and all the other Orishas will continue to enhance your existence in remarkable ways. Please invite your friends, your family, your loved ones to be a part of our Orisha spiritual assembly. As always, we promise to inspire you with the wisdom of Ifa, Eshu, Obatala, and all the other Orisha. Today, as I normally do, we will start off with a brief invocation to Ọbàtálá. Olúwa, Ẹ̀pà, Fìrìàjò àlá, Ẹ̀pà, Ọ̀dàmọ̀dáyẹyẹ, Ẹ̀pà, Òrìṣà ń rọ̀bọ̀ mọ̀rọ̀kọ̀lẹ́yọ̀. Òòṣà ń rọ̀bọ̀ mọ̀rọ̀kọ̀lẹ́yọ̀. Òrìṣà ń rọ̀bọ̀ mọ̀rọ̀kọ̀lẹ́yọ̀. Òòṣà ń rọ̀bọ̀ mọ̀rọ̀kọ̀lẹ́yọ̀. Brief translation. Yapa is a sign of respect that you give to elder things. The swift one in the dreams, the creator of the mother and the child. Obatala is descending from the spiritual world. Be prepared. Earlier throughout the week, I was recalling my experiences here at Ifa University. I was I guess you can say you're always a lifelong student, but of course I was a student many years ago when they initiated the first courses. And as I started at this time, I started off learning the poems of the 256 Odu before I went over to rìndínlógún. So I recall the first session, the first class, and one of the classmates in this Ifa course, he stated that when he began studying Ìṣẹ̀ṣe culture, he started to operate in a different manner. And he made this very excellent simile when we're entering a new culture and leaving a previous culture that may have inconsistent views. And of course, he was speaking about leaving the Western perspective in regards to spirituality and religion. And he said that to enter this new culture, African religion, that he wanted to come with an empty cup. And I thought about it for a moment, and I really loved that simile that this student was expressing. He stated that one is to purge oneself from the previous experiences and the cultural expectations for at a time that they could have inconsistent views. Now, there are standards and, as I would like to say, ritual consequences, either positive or negative, that may not be consistent or be effective in the same capacity when individuals are practicing in another culture. That ritual, I guess we could say, expedience may not be the same in a Western culture as it is getting into African culture. It is something extremely different. So, and I was recalling the life of a teacher of mine, who taught me Chui, Wofakwesi, and he recounted a couple of instances before he passed and went to the ancestral realm. And he was speaking of some family members or some folks he knew who was pastors, and they would promote something and do something almost completely inconsistent. And he said, in his heavy, thick Ghanaian Chui accent, he was like, man, and he warned us when we were studying about the Abosun and getting into African religions, like, the Abosun will not play with you in the same regards that people are playing, in Christianity, like they are playing. And he was speaking about the priest doing some things and leading people in the wrong direction, knowing that there can be some very serious consequence if one were to try this in an African culture. So last week, about 2 weeks ago, I was listening to this voodoo mambo, or this voodoo hugan, and she spoke a little bit about this scenario. And the sentiment of what this hugan was saying was that the importance of truth and honesty in the presentation of power, and the dangers of dishonesty and presenting oneself in public to what is significantly inconsistent to what occurs in the spirit world or what occurs in private. So I am quoting from what the Vodun Hugan stated, and she writes very eloquent and insightful passages. And so this is what she was stating. The attitude of a priest in our different cultures, and our different, not only different African cultures, but our different cultures, because we all have a different Òrìṣà that we follow. Our spiritual lives are an extensions of who we are. And it is a common sense notion that the priestess and the priest are supposed to be a representative of a spirit. And sometimes she says, I believe that this lessens our culture, but it should not. If anything, it should increase it. Our spiritual lives are the foundation of who we are. Our souls are involved. Thus, the essence of who we are is of as a paramount importance. To get this wrong is to literally kill us spiritually or physically in time. So do not cater or do not get bamboozled by those in an African priesthood, or a diasporan priesthood for that matter, who are bragging about their spiritual power. Those in the priesthood are only as powerful as their relationship with their personal deities, and how strong that relationship is with their personal deity. And those are the deities that one had actually and authentically been initiated into. One's spiritual power comes from the divinity themselves, and they should be glorified, not the vessel. So she's stating that the power comes straight from the deity, and that we are only vessels that obey and follow the commands of this deity. And it's not to be done in a pompous or self-glorifying manner. And if you see this, a person of authentic African or a traditional African spirituality, please be aware. These folks are more interested in prestige or money than you. They may sit on the spiritual throne for the prestige and the glory. Spirits, if they ever knew them, will eventually leave, and their spiritual foundation will be built on sinking sands. However, the one who hears the spirits humbly yields to them, they obey, and they are continually guided by them. And this is not only to bless the person with their spiritual powers, but this is the true cause of miracles happening. She later mentions, and I'll mention this briefly in another article, about affronting the spirits. And affronting means an action that causes outrage or offense to a deity. She recounts that those who she had encountered over her many years as a Vodun Hugan, is that she had encountered people who would lie, cheat, buy spiritual titles, or pretend to be something in the spiritual realm, and that they would not eventually catch up to them, is what they believed. They believe that the spirits in their own time will end up catching up with this individual. So she further speaks about how individuals may buy titles and pretend to be something and get away with it. And she was wondering why, or what would make these people so bold to do so. So the Hugan states is that because people weren't really connected to any deity, thus the spirits had less of a control or less contact with them. But when folks began to reach Africa and they started buying spiritual titles that I emphasize that they weren't born into or had no business having at all, this all ended in earnest. In African culture, you can be connected to a spirit and have an actual connection to the spirit realm. Through initiation and through the help of your priesthood, it becomes a double-edged sword. So as you gain direct connection to your spirits, they have a direct connection to you. Thus, they can reach you at any moment in your life. The authentic initiation process knocks down the walls that separate the spirit world from the physical world. And this is why, while folks are out here taking advantage and damaging people's lives, and sadly, one by one, each one had been taken off the face of the earth. And she further goes into explanation about this affronting process is that once individuals become initiated or spiritually active, and they start to represent themselves in a dishonest manner, is that this will cause a great offense to the deities, that the deities will actually start to disassociate and leave the individual, or something even worse could happen. But at many times, there are individuals who are seeking attention, I suppose, of being a healer due to the prestige, but at the same time, the things that they spread is like a spiritual contagion or spiritual sickness. Sometimes individuals may not be healed themselves, but attempting to heal the community and is doing more harm than good. But then that sometimes, as we know in all cultures, money seems to be the big motivator of having this type of duality, so to speak. This essence was covered in Atrura Meiji, and it said that Atrura Meiji is the Odu of Muslims, and the first Muslim was actually the children of Oromila. And this essay briefly goes as follows. Boju Bawi, Inuwawi, Benubawi, Inuwasia, para, bi, asho, adifa fun adulai, ti on shanrode, ila, oni keke, ela non, agba, ila, non, wakun leru. So, of course, the language is a little different. Adulai is Abdullah. And so in this essay, it was said that there was an account of someone that is pretending to do something that they're not. They're showing up one way in the spirit world, but presenting themselves to be something completely different in the material world. So here, Ifa is saying that, and this goes in both ways, and this is such a paradoxical Odu. And there were stories where individuals decided to leave Ifa and go to Islam. And there were some stories of what people were doing from an Islamic perspective and how they were actually showing up. But regardless of both ways or both perspectives, the underlying wisdom is consistent. And so what the wisdom is saying in this Odu of Ochura is that what one states their faith is almost irrelevant. What someone proclaims to do, it really doesn't matter. What is really important is the content of your character and your actions. So Abdullah was a Muslim man, and he went around town pretending to do something that was related to spirituality, religion, or some type of work that was related to spreading Islam in Yoruba land. So what Abdullah was actually doing, Abdullah was stealing. So he came to Ila, and he was continuing to spread Islam, promote himself, I suppose, as some type of cleric. And then he was stealing from people when they didn't notice, and the people caught him. So then back then, they had, I guess, public displays of, I guess, vigilante justice, if we want to call it that. So they painted them with ashes, and there was no jail time, there was no prison, but there were just a public disgrace. And there were several numbers of Muslims that were here caught stealing. And again, they were supposed to be spreading the words of Allah. So this is a dual warning to be aware of someone posing as a spiritualist coming to do something, but also it's a stern warning about using spirituality to swindle people out of money. And I believe we're seeing more and more of this as social media gets popular and it may look as a attractive field. And I believe the field is attractive because of the genuine benevolence that people can do to enhance the life of other people. But we can see when things are egotistical or when things are altruistic. There's another story in Awari Rede, and this story brings a very good point that the Vodun Hugan was stating. And so she was saying that even though our relationship to the deities are very subtle, they're very calm and they're very subtle, but they have a very strong influence over our lives. And I think sometimes when we see man's competition with nature, like the skyscrapers, the technology, the flashing lights, and the glitz and glam, I feel like it can give like a sensory overload to where we're missing the everyday subtle appearance of the deities and nature, and they operate in a very subtle manner. So in this story speaks about someone called Asatu, and Asatu was born in an extended family. And I'm not saying this in a general way when I'm saying Ifa. I'm not saying Ifa speaking of the whole Ishese tradition, but I'm speaking about explicitly the deity Ifa. So her family was a family that had a direct tie to Ifa practice. So this family was one of Babalaos and Iyanifas and Ifa practitioners specifically. That was the only deity that they worshiped. So for some reason, Asatu decided that she would go and become a Muslim. And she decided to change her Yoruba name. And after a while, when she dropped the Sheshe and things I suppose are going all right, she became ill gradually, minorly ill, and then it was a major chronic issue. And she was going to different people, different, I guess, practitioners, and everything that she tried, it wasn't succeeding. And her health was slowly deteriorating with no success. So when she found no solution to her problem, Asatu had to humble herself and go back to the tradition that she left for healing. She went to a diviner, the diviner casted, and the diviner said that the root cause of your health, the root cause of your chronic disease was abandoning the culture and abandoning the priesthood that had benefited you and your extended household for quite some time. And so if she did not turn back to practicing Ifa, is that her life would be doomed. And so, and I think some things get lost. And I when I frequently talk to individuals, and it's easy to appear as if one is some type of, I guess, zealot or proselytizing to other people. But I think something that is overlooked is that there are deities that not only follow you when you come to earth, but there are deities that follow your maternal lineage and your paternal lineage. And it's not the fact that we're seeking to convert someone to worship something. And we don't look at a global view of what everybody should be doing. Everyone has their own background. Everyone has their own ancestral clan, and everyone has their own deities that are directed to and that oversees your bloodline. But I think a lot of folks miss that, is that your health and your holistic well-being is truly governed by the deities that oversee your bloodline. And losing that can cause someone significant harm. I was listening to Baba Wande's interviews quite some time ago, and he stated in one of his lectures that in the olden days, it was obligatory for Obatala, Òrìṣà, and Obatala Baba Òrìṣà to be trained as clairvoyant seers, dealing with the unique and esoteric energy that Obatala possesses. And I had this experience before, and I think I shared this with some of you previously, that when I got a chance to meet the RA of Obatala and Uyo, Baba Abusha, Ola Deji, Ola Iwola, he was able to, before I even got a chance to, speak further than just my initial greetings to an elder, he was able to chant an essay without casting. So he chanted an essay, he did not cast, but the essay and the Odu that he pulled from was 100% accurate to what I was experiencing and what I was going to experience when I left. So I also had this experience from another Obatala priestess who was also an Ifa priestess as well. I feel as if I came into the Òrìṣà culture fairly late, so I did not get a chance. I didn't have the chance to know this Iya Nifa, this Iya Òrìṣà for quite some time, but she made a great impact on my life. And this is Mother Ifunyale Taylor. We will call her Mother Taylor. And she was a wonderful woman. And I got a chance to meet her, I believe, for the last 4 years of her life. And when I went to Mother's house, it was me and a couple other people, and we were going through different divinations to go further into the practice under Mother Taylor. So she was able to pull so much information. Now, as the other people she was training with were, trying to perfect the Ifa divination practice, and Mother just sits so calmly, correcting them here, correcting them there. And she was able to pull so much information in an esoteric manner. So Mother calmly, gave me tips about, I guess, my receptivity and making sure that always being a vessel for good. You have good receptivity, make sure you use it as a gift. And when it came time for another person, Mother sat there calmly and she asked the person, "How is your husband?" And the person said, "Fine, he's fine." She's like, "Okay." She said, "Well, how is your boyfriend?" And this person was just stuck, absolutely speechless, that Mother was able to pull that information up. No casting, no nothing, no tarot, no cards, no nothing. Mother just pulled that information up by just reading her. And all of the other ELREs were laughing for some reason. And I found some of this kind of appalling. And I thought about it, was like, why would you begin a sacred journey going towards the steps of initiation, knowing that something in your heart isn't right, or that there's some serious offensive that has been committed, as if one does not believe in the spiritual power of these practitioners, as if they're doubting their spiritual receptivity or their spiritual ashe, so to speak. So briefly, last week, we spoke about an essay from Awari Meiji that reminded us that sometimes good-hearted people are almost like a magnet to some types of malevolence, and that there is an idea of duplicity, that we see them, four of them listed here. Friends who are secretly enemies, enemies who are pretending to be friends, strangers who are actually enemies, and enemies who are the first ones to empathize with us. So Ellerine Sajeje was someone who is constantly joyful, constantly happy, this high-ranking elder that is a magnet towards this negativity. And it seems as if, and as we stated from another Odu last week, is that people who have a high purpose, this high ranking, this calling, and this path in life, you will be targeted by these low vibration entities and people. And so as Ori Meiji spoke about this types of duplicity, and as we're thinking about how sometimes we can see things, how one may appear on one side, and then how individuals may appear on the other side. And we all have experienced these things, such as, you come into work, or you come into a place with friends, and you would see someone who would give you praises and compliments and will be so positive to you. And the moment you turn around, you would hear the almost exact opposite. So I thought about this, and the message that I wanted to send here today is not necessarily dealing with this type of egregious duplicity, but I want us to start to take a look at ourselves. Now, we will be in situations, and if you have not been, which I'm sure you have been, one is coming up real soon. to where we must act as if we truly believe what we say we believe. And that it could be just like Asatu or the others that we had discussed today. There's going to be a point to where we must really operate and choose, are we going to believe into the spiritual power and the wisdom of the Òrìṣà, or are we going to follow the ways of life? And I feel like operating in this reality, believe it or not, we can all be guilty of. I was guilty of from time to time. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Have I done anything egregious like I mentioned? No. But what I will say is that there's been times to where I had self-doubt, I had fear, I had insecurity, believing that the way of the world was stronger than my Òrìṣà. That duplicity is that if we say we believe the Òrìṣà as big as we believe, if we do our sacrifices, if we do our divinations as frequently as we believe, can we really know fear? Can we really know insecurity? Can we really know doubt? Can we really know depression? That is the duplicity, and that is the two hearts that I want to speak to you all about today. As I continue to think about how I personally showed up, this cadence shows up in the Obara Odu from the 16 Kari divinations about having two hearts. And this story is about someone called Akere Milese. And this person was a worried and troubled person. And this same duplicity existed here. And so what this person was doing is that they were doubting the Òrìṣà, not in regards to the ability to punish someone in their life, but they were doubting the Òrìṣà and their ability to bless and enhance someone else's life. So as this essay was continuing with the name of the diviners, and there's a very coded message that is indicated in this essay. And it was saying that the belief system is incongruent from an Òrìṣà, that this person had a beautiful mind, this person had a beautiful outcome, this person had a beautiful gift to contribute to the world. But in a sense, this person was defiling and throwing the sanctity of this life due to having these two hearts. Now, this is where Obatala was saying that this person has physical pains, poverty, and they were barren. And all of this was solved not only by doing the ritual Ebo, but doing the psychological and the mental Ebo, is by having faith and stop doubting the power of the Òrìṣà. And believe it or not, disbelief has no place in Òrìṣà culture. And if we are struggling with faith, before you go any further, this is the very first thing that must be addressed. And if one does not believe, the deities cannot work on your behalf. And just as they say, it's an occult saying that says the will cannot act in a manner in which the mind does not believe. And this further, I want to elaborate on what they say with the Orienu, is that the Orienu is the only one that can actually sanction blessings to your life. And there's a very coded, esoteric, long meaning to that. I highly suggest taking, the Òrìṣà spirituality course where we touched on that. But there's a coded meaning to why they say that no deity can bless you without your Orienu sanctioning it first. And this further proves that there's a strong role that the mind plays in blessing your life, or that mind accepting the blessings from the Òrìṣà. So this is what Obatala means by saying two hearts. We cannot have a heart of the deities and a heart of disbelief at the same time. Now, there will always be times where we'll be forced to confront ourselves, and we will have a time to where we have to confirm, are we acting in belief of our Òrìṣà, or are we acting in the belief of fear, insecurity, and lack? And so just know that everything that one will experience is a true test of character. And I feel like this is a specialized test that is based on the Odu that you were born under, and that's based under the Òrìṣà, that is the authority of your life. And so just think about this. Just as egregious was it about all the other antisocial acts that I mentioned, about the sense of duplicity, in my mind, we must hold ourselves to the same integrity of our own lives, that same integrity of that despise of duplicity, of having two faces, of appearing to be one way in public, deceiving people, and actually being something else in closeted. So I'm saying this in an inverted perspective, is that if we're carrying ourselves, if we're doing our divinations, we're doing our elbows, we're doing our rituals, and if we are doing everything that the Òrìṣà had asked of us, if we're getting the words through divination, we cannot continue to walk forth in fear, in doubt, in insecurity. That is repelling the Òrìṣà away from our lives. And this is how we show, as Obara stated, as having two hearts. Briefly, I will go over this story. It's another story from Obara as well. This story speaks about a hunter, and a hunter was going on for 6 days in the bush without finding or killing any animals. And so after the 6th day, the colleagues he was hunting with, everyone started getting hungry and they wanted to look for something to eat. And so again, as they were searching, there was no food, there wasn't anything, but they came across someone who was divining a rìndínlógún in the forest. And so they casted him, and then they gave divination advice and elbow to the hunter. A couple of moments after, Obatala, they call him Òbàtálá in this story. Òbàtálá is another praise name for Obatala, and he changed into a human. So Òbàtálá was here, and he asked, what are you doing, or what are you coming here for? And they said, we were hunting and we couldn't find any animals for days. So Òbàtálá said, okay, you keep on going forward. I'm gonna make sure that you're gonna find some animals. Don't worry, you're gonna find something to eat. The hunters found the animals, killed them, and they ate. And so they were told to sacrifice some pieces to Òbàtálá. But the rest of them said, don't worry about it. I don't see Òbàtálá. We don't see Òbàtálá. He must have left. Let's just take it, like forget it. It's nothing important. So when they started trekking further into the forest, they all entered this hole, and it was a trap. And they were trapped in this hole for 6 days. And Òbàtálá came, he turned back into a human again, and he wanted to see what was going on. And they says, please, can you get us out of this pit? If you do this for us, I swear we'll do this. If you do this for us, we'll give you that. Can you please get us out of this hole? And so they all promised to contribute a portion of that animal to Òbàtálá if he can let him out of this hole. So Òbàtálá gave a message to Shango, and he caused rain to fall. And so when the rain fell, they were able to easily come out of this hole. And so some time went on, and Òbàtálá stated, those things that you promised to give me, can I have that? Can you give me what you said you were going to give me? And the hunter said, we didn't promise you anything. We said we'll be singing for you. We didn't say we're going to give you any food. We'll say we'll sing for you. So Òbàtálá said, the music is enough. Sing, let me hear it. And so when they started singing, he helped me. Òbàtálá helped me. He helped my colleagues. He helped me. He helped my children. Òbàtálá said, okay, that's enough. He said that you will have to be singing for me 200 times in the morning, 200 times in the afternoon, 200 times at night. And you should never open your mouth to speak again. And he turned them all into frogs. So what this story is saying here is that sometimes when we experience the blessings, we sometimes think that it's just a coincidence. It would have happened anyway. Or, maybe some man, some woman, some person had gave us this blessing, but these things are only the symptoms. They're only the vessels, but that the deities is the root of our success. And if we keep overlooking how the deities actually bless us, is that we could throw away our luck, or throw away what we were blessed with due to this misbelief. And we're taking advantage of the deities, thinking that it came from someone else but them. Do not throw away your blessings, and do not throw away the relationship that you have with your deities, because they are the source. We all know, and we all heard the story about what happens with the Orienu before we get here, is that we are born in the Orun, that we select our Ori from our Jala. We have to cross over this river, which some believe is the amniotic fluid. we touch the tree of forgetfulness, and then we come here. Sometimes in life, we could be led in the wrong direction. Sometimes individuals can have too much mental control over our lives to where we may go in the wrong direction, or we may select something or go in a route that's inconsistent to with who we are. But when we selected our Ori, it was not a conference call. You alone picked up your Ori anew, and no other person was there with you. And this is something very important when we're going on our journey in life, is that by you cleaning and invoking and calling your Ori anew is the same type of divination that you would get when you divine. This was something that was spoken to us, and we cannot be distracted in life. In closing, our initiation gives us a close relationship with our deities. I would highly recommend that you all review your old divinations with a sense of renewed spirit and a renewed mind. I want you all to review and study the Odu that gave birth to you. That is a very important indicator of what are some things that you are almost predestined to experience. What are some type of scenarios or simulations that you will keep experiencing by being born under that Odu. And trust and review your divinations. What was told to you, do not throw it away because of disbelief. You did the work, you did the elbow, and I can tell you are continuing on your spiritual path. But do not have those two hearts, do not have those two faces by throwing away something due to your disbelief. You have to stop doubting yourself, stop doubting what you think the Òrìṣà can do for you. You will have to choose faith or fear. As an Òrìṣà, you cannot know both. You have to choose between the way of the world or the way of your deity. You're going to have to choose the secular life or the spiritual life. And now I know, but of course we know we cannot escape reality. We cannot live an isolated life, but be cautious about being too connected to the material world and balance it out by rooting yourself in the spirit world. Self-doubt and fear cannot coincide with Òrìṣà praxis. We have to challenge ourselves, and where we see any seed of a lack of faith, we must stomp it out immediately before going any further. Renew your perspectives. Do not let the past change you. Do not have two faces. Do not have two hearts. Always remain the same, and do not doubt what the Òrìṣà can do for you. I want to thank you all for joining Òrìṣà Devotion. I'm going to check the chat real quick. How do we connect with the Òrìṣà to which we are initiated to on a deeper level if we don't have a mentor whom we can study with? That is a very excellent question. And I actually found that question, and I actually found an answer to that before I even came to EFI University. So we have to think about it. Who initiated the first priest? Who initiated the first priestess? Who was the first teacher to the Òrìṣà or Òrìṣà? And there's two. You have your Ori anew, and then you have your ancestors. These are, now we have icons, and these icons are something that we could, it's a face that we could give an offering to. But in a sense, we are connected to these two entities. So again, I knew nothing about Òrìṣà culture when I started off, maybe about 10 years ago. I only knew Kamal, priestess and priest, and I knew Akan, Abasomfos and Akamfos. I knew some Vodun people as well, but of course, the first thing in African culture is to figure out what clan you incarnated under last. And so they told me the very first step towards anything is getting in contact with, in Akan, they call it the Akrawa, and Yoruba are Ori anew. That is the thing that has access to anything that you need to know. And then your ancestors, of course, will lead you. So what I would say is that the first teacher is your Ori anew. And it's something like we have to do every day. Like say, for an example, you want some washboard abs. is that, you've seen something, you look in the mirror, it's like, you know what, I want a six-pack. So it's going to be kind of difficult to get a six-pack if we only work out, let's say, once every 3 days or once every 4 days, or once every week. To get those abs that we want is that we're going to have to work out on a consistent basis, and also we may have to do it more than once a day. So I was actually posed this question to the community and I didn't get an answer to, but I'll keep sleuthing. Is that in other cultures, there is almost a standard way to how many times they invoke their deity. And I want you to kind of sit with that when you go to your Ile Ori, to think about how many times a day should you sit and invoke your deity and your Ori Anu, to kind of to have that clear receptivity. They'll come through dreams, and then they'll come through everyday life occurrences, and look for that subtle way of how the Orisha can manipulate reality. So what I will say is, in short, is your Ile Ori and your Egungun are the first two teachers, and you'll find a way to get access to information, A, but then B, they will bring you, if need be, a consistent teacher that is going to help you along your way. So it's the deities that are orchestrating things behind the scenes. So in short, those are the two things that I would start with. And then also we are working on an exchange to speak about what you mentioned just there, is that we will coordinate some type of exchange between our students here and a particular priesthood abroad to kind of further supplement your knowledge. But like, as what was told to me in Akan, is that your first teacher is your ancestors and your Ori Anu, and I mean that literally. That's a good way to start, the only way to start. I say thank you, Iyamari. Our ancestors are the one entity that many can connect with. Their blood runs into our veins. They can help us figure out our figure all out, including what's in our head as they walk that path. Absolutely. And even though it seems like we're returning to this culture, think about the millions of ancestors that we have that had done what we're doing now. Within what about let's say 8 or 9 generations, it's probably like over just about 1 million ancestors. And they're all here to guide us. Absolutely true. All right. Is there any further questions before we go? All right. Thank you all so much for joining Devotion today. If you all have any questions about this matter, you can always shoot me an email at Isola, ISOLA, @ifa.university. And Babo Kola will be returning next week. Thank you all for your hospitality, and thank you all for welcoming me as you always do in this devotion. Have a very strong, purposeful week. And remember, renew your sense of perspective, review your initiation notes, review your old divination notes, and step forward with one heart. Ariel Odabo.